Dear YouTube community, this is the story of the first English colony in North America, which mysteriously disappeared without a trace. Please support us by liking the video. Roanoke, the mysterious colony that vanished without a trace. In 1587, explorer John White left more than 100 people in a territory that is now North Carolina. He returned 3 years later and found absolutely nothing. To fulfill the wishes of Queen Elizabeth I, Sir Humphrey Gilbert sought to expand the crown's reach far from London. After he drowned during an unsuccessful attempt to colonize Newfoundland, Walter Raleigh took his half-brother's place. By order of Her Majesty, he was tasked with establishing the first English colonies in North America. Raleigh sent several expeditions to North America, including one led by his cousin, Richard Grenville. One of the settlements was established on Roanoke Island, located several miles south of the Chesapeake Bay in North Carolina. There, while searching for gold, they engaged in abusive relationships with the local natives, the Secotans and the Croatoan, which naturally ended in disaster. In July 1587, John White, an artist and personal friend of Raleigh, landed on Roanoke Island with 100 men and women. This time, they were ordered to interact peacefully. More than a month later, after his granddaughter Virginia Dare became the first English child born in the New World, White sailed back to England to gather supplies. However, White's plans for a quick trip were thwarted by the Anglo-Spanish War, 1585 to 1604. At the Crown's request, the governor of the North American enclave had to put his ship at the disposal of the fleet to face what would become known as the Spanish Armada. When White returned to Europe, he was caught up in the war between Philip II's Catholic Spain and Elizabeth I's Anglican England. There were no resources or ships for expeditions. Everything was funneled into the European conflict. After several failed attempts with smaller vessels, White finally secured passage on a privateer ship returning from the Caribbean in 1590. But the governor's plans to reunite with his wife Thomasina, his daughter Eleanor, and his little granddaughter Virginia Dare vanished. White landed at Roanoke on August 18th, the day his granddaughter would have turned 3. However, the settlement was a desert. There was no trace of the 90 men, 17 women, and 11 children. There were no signs of battle or struggle, only the name of the Croatoan tribe and the initials Crow carved into the trees. The colonists' houses and fortifications had been dismantled, indicating that the abandonment was not a rushed action. Prior to leaving, White had established a code. They were not to leave the fort unless forced. And if something bad happened, such as an attack by natives or Spaniards, they were to carve a Maltese cross into a tree trunk. There was no cross. White interpreted this to mean the colonists might have moved to Croatoan Island, 50 miles to the south, but a massive storm prevented them from checking, and the following day, the governor and his men left the area. From that moment, a legend was born, the lost colony of Roanoke. To this day, the fate of the settlers remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of American history. James Monroe, the 5th President of the United States, visited the site in 1819. At the time, all that remained was the outline of an earthwork, a precarious structure believed to have been built by the first colony in 1585. Over the years, excavations were conducted in 1890 and again in 1940, during World War II. Neither revealed much. Later, the National Park Service reconstructed the earthwork that today forms the centerpiece of the Fort Raleigh National Historic Site. Since 1998, the Croatoans to support the theory that the Croatologic sites according, or at least in Croatodes tribal, at the least Croto-Itrapics tribed, at least like slees, as lease lap, with web, with to with, clam, or with awen, and will work with plaque bab, or with or with Artifacts found in Croatoan villages, items owned or manufactured by the English, provide strong evidence of a connection. What remains unclear is whether the dates align with the disappearance or a later period. Historian Lee Miller, author of Roanoke, Solving the Mystery of the Lost Colony, suggests some survivors sought refuge with the Chuano, who were later attacked by another tribe, possibly the Tuscarora or the Eno. Another theory suggests they tried to return to England by sea. White had left them small boats, which were unsuitable for the open ocean. They may have been lost to starvation or storms. Others suggest a fatal encounter with the Spanish fleet. The 6th season of American Horror Story draws on the Roanoke legends, fictionalizing a curse. In the series, Thomasina White, John's wife, is left in charge, but the colonists rebel and exile her to the woods. She is saved by the witch Scathic, who offers her the heart of a wild boar in exchange for a soul. Thomasina consumes it and returns for a bloody revenge. Of course, this is pure fiction. In 2012, researchers studying a watercolor map painted by White discovered a hidden image under a patch of paper. a fort on the coast of the Albemarle Sound, 50 miles west of Roanoke. It appeared to be drawn in what analysts considered invisible ink. It is believed White hid the location to keep it secret from the Spanish, who wanted to eliminate the colony. In 2015, archaeologist Nick Luckety excavated the area. While he didn't find a fort, he found dozens of pieces of English pottery. He believes a small group of colonists, perhaps a single family, lived there, farming and waiting in vain for a rescue that never came. Though many artifacts have been recovered, the true fate of those 100 people remains a ghost in the halls of history.